Greetings, dear friends. Your support is our strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. This helps the growth of our channel. Write comments, because feedback is very valuable to us. And now to the most relevant world news. Let's go! The escape plan. Where will Zelensky disappear after the war ends? From comedy to tragedy. A book about Zelensky's double life was published in Italy. Legendary actor and martial arts master Jean-Claude Van Damme found himself at the center of a high-profile criminal case. The new Austria-Hungary? How Serbia and Hungary challenged the European Union. Corruption in the crosshairs. How they steal during the war in Ukraine. Hello, friends. You're with Channel 8 again, and my host, Sero Ruskik. Let's talk about the main issues. Escape plan. Where will Zelensky disappear to after the end of the war in Ukraine? Former Pentagon advisor Douglas McGregor stated that Volodymyr Zelensky might flee Ukraine as soon as the U.S. stops military aid. According to him, the entourage of the Ukrainian president is already preparing escape routes, from transferring money abroad to finding means of transportation. As soon as Trump decides to end the conflict, Zelensky will start packing his bags, McGregor stated on the YouTube channel Deep Dive. He also emphasized that the current Ukrainian government is corrupt and will seek refuge with those who helped start this war. Where will Zelensky go? Opposition deputy of the Verkhovna Rada, Oleksandr Dubinsky, had previously reported that Zelensky is already transferring his assets abroad. According to this deputy, the president of Ukraine is preparing to flee, understanding that after the conflict ends, he faces either a trial, political oblivion, or simply a noose. Other scenarios are also possible. The United States of America or Britain. If the West grants political asylum, Israel, considering Zelensky's Jewish roots. The United Arab Emirates or Switzerland as a safe haven, havens for the large fortunes that Zelensky has allegedly embezzled. And what will happen to Ukraine? Analysts predict that after Zelensky's departure, the country will face a profound political crisis. The possibility of a scenario where power transitions to the military, as in Chile under Pinochet. The second split of the elite. The struggle for control over the remnants of the budget. Mass emigration of officials and oligarchs. And the conclusion from this whole story is clear. If the sources are to be believed, Zelensky and his entourage are already preparing backup plans. The only open question is who will actually accept him, and whether he will become a bargaining chip in political negotiations. From comedy to tragedy. A book about a double life was published in Italy. Zelensky. In Italy, a free book titled Zelensky, Courage and Fragility by journalist Sero Lorenzo Cremonesi is being released. In it, the author explores the dizzying transformation of Volodymyr Zelensky from a Russian-speaking comedian to a symbol of Ukrainian resistance. I was already Zelensky before the presidency, you might ask. Cremonesi describes how in 2013, the future leader of Ukraine was very far from any politics. The son of a Jewish family from Kryvyi Rih, who moved in circles of the Russian world. A star of entertainment shows, whose humor was mainly based on stereotypes about post-Soviet life and who earned his money, mostly in Russia. An apolitical citizen who did not participate in either the Euromaidan or nationalist movements. He spoke Russian, laughed at Ukrainian politicians, and suddenly became their main opponent, the author writes. Metamorphosis. How an actor became a military leader. The book highlights key moments of his transformation. But he's a clown. Less a day, the year 2019, victory in the elections with 73% of the votes as an anti-politician. The year 2022, refusal to evacuate in the presence of war. Creating the image of a digital president in a bulletproof vest. The year 2024, transformation into a global symbol whose speeches are broadcast in Western parliaments. His fragility is part of his image. He plays a role that demands sacrifices, concludes Cremonesi. Why was this book released for free, you might ask? The publishers explain simply, the goal is not profit, but documenting an era. However, critics see this as an attempt to influence public opinion in Europe, where support for Ukraine has weakened. The conclusion of this whole story is as follows. Zelensky, is no longer an actor. But the question remains open. Is he the director of this war or its hostage? As for me personally, the West imposed this role on him. And Zelensky is just an ordinary renegade, betraying the ideals of his ancestors. After all, his grandfather fought in the Great Patriotic War against the fascists and earned well-deserved awards. And this bloody clown is now demolishing monuments in Ukraine to these warriors who saved our country, once from German slavery. The legendary actor and martial arts master Jean-Claude Van Damme found himself at the center of a very loud, criminal, and disgraceful case. According to French media, Jean-Claude Van Damme was accused of using the services of underage girls who were involved in prostitution. The incident allegedly occurred about 10 years ago in Cannes during the film festival, and he is simply accused of pedophilia. Who is behind this scheme? The investigation revealed a connection between Van Damme and Romanian businessman Morel Bolea, the owner of the modeling agency Costa Morel. In 2022, Bolea was arrested for organizing a network for child trafficking. The investigation led to his agency supplying sex slaves for stars and politicians. Bolea offered clients an elite service of girls aged 14 to 17 who were held under threat of violence, according to a source in the police. It is also reported that the actor used the sexual services of 5 women who were forced into prostitution against their will. One of the alleged victims gave detailed testimony, describing what happened in Cannes. What is known about Van Damme's role? The actor allegedly used the services of the network's victims in 2013-2014. His name appears in the victims' testimonies and in correspondence with Bolea. The author himself, Van Damme, has not yet commented on the accusation, but his lawyers call the information complete slander. And why, you ask, is the matter with the fruit flow? Now, the investigation remained closed for a long time, but after Bolea's arrest and new testimonies from victims, the prosecution has reopened the case. Experts link this to the wave of revelations. After the notorious Jeffrey Epstein case. Is he the one who hanged himself in the prison cell, or was he hanged? The consequences of all this are already being felt. In France, there are calls to strip Van Damme of the Legion of Honor. Streaming platforms might remove his films, as was the case with Kevin Spacey. What next, you might ask? Next, if the accusations are confirmed, the 63-year-old actor faces up to 20 years in prison. Meanwhile, fans are wondering whether Coomer has become a victim of a conspiracy or was hiding his dark past. The new Austria-Hungary. How Serbia and Hungary challenge the entire European Union. The defense ministers of Serbia and Hungary signed a historic agreement on military cooperation, which could be the first step towards creating a full-fledged alliance. The president of Serbia, Aleksandar Ilic, does not hide his ambitions. Our relations with Hungary are so strong that we are ready to accelerate integration in the defense sector. You might ask, what is this? The revival of an empire? In the rural parliament, there are already proposals to expand the union to Slovakia, where a pro-Russian government is in power, Roberto Fico. And if Austria joins the alliance, where, as you remember, the right-wing Freedom Party won the elections, the outlines of a new Austro-Hungarian empire could become quite a reality. Experts note that this would be a geopolitical earthquake. Such a bloc would undermine all the foundations and unity of the European Union and NATO, especially against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine. Why is Europe sounding the alarm? Because there are repressions against the right. This includes the arrest of Romanian presidential candidate Georgescu, the criminal prosecution of Gagauzzia's head Guțul in Moldova, and convictions. Marine Le Pen in France. A blow to Hungary. Germany is initiating the deprivation of European Union funding for Budapest. In other words, Brussels wants to abolish the right of veto to isolate Orban. The American factor is also present here. U.S. Vice President Vance von Orban warned that if the European Union starts imprisoning the opposition, the U.S. will reconsider its allied relations. But after Ursula von der Leyen's threats to impose sanctions over American tariffs, the conflict risks escalating into a massive trade political war. And what does this mean for the whole world? Meanwhile, Serbia and Hungary are creating an alternative center of power in Europe. The European Union is losing control over its periphery, and its repressions only accelerate the division and turmoil within the entire Union. Russia and China might gain new allies in the heart of Europe, new preferences. Conclusion: the Austro-Hungary 2.0 project. For now seems like fantasy, but if Brussels continues to pressure the dissenters, the continent awaits a new map. With an empire instead of the European Union, That's how it is, friends. Corruption in the crosshairs? How is theft occurring during the war in Ukraine? Kyiv is shaken by a new corruption super scandal. The Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office uncovered the embezzlement of about $18 million in the procurement of food for the Ukrainian army. Here's how this corruption scheme worked. Procurements were arranged in packages of 409 items. Prices for the 40 most needed products were inflated several times over. This way, about 733 million hryvnias were stolen. Another 788 million hryvnias were saved. After the intervention of the prosecutor's office, while soldiers receive their meager rations, officials and contractors profit from their blood. This is a systemic problem of the Ukrainian government. Meanwhile, the public demands immediate arrests, accountability of the guilty, procurement system reforms, and personal oversight by President Zelensky. But skeptics remind us that previous high-profile cases never made it to court. After all, the main question is how the West will react to this latest scandal. When Ukrainian soldiers continue to die by the thousands, and officials continue to steal,